What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab Freddy Fox, America's Big Brother, and we live with the Saturday Night Sit Down. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab Freddy Fox, America's Big Brother, and today we are live with the man behind the Conscious Father Society, Andrew Jones. What's going on, my man?
Doing good, bro. How you feeling?
I am doing awesome, man. Super excited to have you on here, man. I love seeing dads out there doing anything and really putting a front for us. It's just for myself, I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, right? And just take care of my kids. I really wanted to be there. And it just felt very awkward for me, going to the park and stuff like that, or going out with my kids, and then you just see all the moms running around and stuff, and it just made me feel a little self-conscious, like the stares and like, oh, why isn't he working or what is he doing here? You know what I mean? Like he shouldn't be providing for the family because me, I'm a big proponent of just, a man is supposed to be a provider. And I do that in my own sense, and that's where you can relate. I have my t-shirt company, Fox Customs. I'm doing my podcast here,
Okay.
and a bunch of other things that I do find other ways to provide for my family. But my main thing is really being present for my kids. I needed to be there and make sure that they had a strong role model and that that was in their lives. So seeing you doing that with your show and I seen, your brand come up, I was like, I got to reach out to this dude. I got to have him on here. So thank you for taking the time to sit with me, man.
Oh, for sure, bro. Appreciate you having me on. That's the whole reason I started the Conscious Father Society, man, was just, there's just not enough conversation out there around being like the best dad you can be. You know what I mean? I think the traditional ways of, being a good dad was just like providing, making sure there's food on the table, making sure
Right.
over the kid's head and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, you want to check off those boxes, but I think that's just scratching the surface, my dude. Like that's just I think those are just like the artificial boxes that we as men are just supposed to check off. And I think we just really got to be able to dig deeper and move on to like the legacy. Like how do we want to be remembered? How do
Absolutely.
and uh like how do we want our kids to think of us? But not only that, like just I mean how are we going to make truly like an impact on their lives? And I think it goes deeper than just being there physically. I mean, I'm all about that, but it's time for some conversation. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. So again, thank you for coming on. I think it's gonna be a great conversation. So let's get started, man. As I always ask everybody, my very first question, as myself, struggling to find my way into manhood and trying to find out what it is to be a man or be a good person, all these things, I've just been barred and lost my place. So for you, what do you think are some of the main characteristics or qualities it takes for someone to be a good man or a good person?
I think really first and foremost, like the first thing that for me, I really think is just being able to own up to our mistakes. I mean, that's
Mm,
one thing that I've struggled with for a long time. I mean, from when I was fighting with my brother at, 12 to, getting in trouble in high school and, in my teenage years, I was always pointing fingers, and I was always
mm.
in, but what about this dude? Or what about them? What are they doing? And I think the biggest thing for me, probably on the first list, is really just being able to own up to our mistakes. I mean, you've made them, I've made them. I made mistakes this weekend, man, and they're going to continue to happen. It comes with the territory of being a human, but then on top of that, just being a father. And so, just the first one there, yeah, it definitely has to be just being able to own up to those mistakes and being able to really like check ourselves on them and then how can we move past that? Because I think if we do, realize where we fall short, where we maybe try to overcompensate or whatever, we kind of get hung up there. We kind of get just kind of get stagnant on that point there. But past that, it's like how do we recognize what we're doing wrong or where we could do more improvement, and then being able to move on past that and grow from it. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. And I love that you said that. I think again, just been doing this 37 episodes now. And that's the first time I think somebody said that is just really old up to your stakes. But I think it's huge. Because I was actually talking to some other people about this. And as a parent, right? And I think we've seen that too. Like our parents are supposed to be, always right. They don't make any mistakes and we put them on this high pedestals. I think even for my parents, they never really admitted to their mistakes. Like my perfect example, I had this issue with my dad when I was and I was very, very heavy growing up and stuff. And one day my dad came home very drunk. And I got teased a lot at school, but for being overweight and all these things. So again, your home is supposed to be your safety, where you feel secure and okay with yourself. And he came home very, very drunk, and he starts going off on me about being overweight and just always eating and just really tearing me down. And I remember that night I went to my mom. I was like, "Yo, I hate this man." Straight up, I told her I hate this dude.
Hmm.
And then the next day, I guess my mom talked to him or whatever, and he came to my room the next morning, and I guess it was his way of apologizing. But he said, whatever I said to you yesterday was really for your own good. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, do you understand like what you were saying, or how that really affected me mentally, and just how I really started seeing myself? Like, you're the person I look up to,
Hmm.
and you completely destroyed me, you know. And I think that should have been one of the first things to start like saying like, hey, you know what, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. So for me, I think it's very important. I tell everybody, my daughter's 6. I got 2 kids. My daughter's 6 and my son is 3. And if my daughter, if I make a mistake with her, I tell her, hey, you know what, daddy was wrong in this aspect. I should have done this or whatever, and explaining to her, that I'm not perfect, that I'm trying. But I think it's completely okay if you do something wrong with your kids to apologize to them and explain to them. I think it's at least for me, especially what I went through. It's very important in that sense that my daughter understands I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but I'm willing to come to you and talk to you. And I think that goes exactly what you said. Really owning up to our mistakes and standing ground and not like brushing it off or blaming things or trying to make anything go wrong. So I love that you brought that up, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's just what it is. That's part of it. There is just I think that like society, like we always feel the need. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I think society puts a need. That light on dads that like we always have to be perfect. Like we always have
Right.
to have the right answers. We always have to do things perfect. And then past that, it's like if you mess up, you mess up. But I think where we got to move forward is like really bringing that like emotional aspect into it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
dads and the previous dads, previous generations, they probably grew up, old cats and old school, and maybe didn't have those deeper conversations, or maybe
Right.
didn't feel like they had that ability to really speak out and kind of admit fault, and it may be seen as like being weak or something on their pride. You know what I
That's
mean?
what it was.
And I think that's kind of where it is. And I think there's still a lot of people that are kind of stuck there. And so, I really think that being able to not only just realize it, not only just recognize, the mistakes we made, but like, how can you pivot from that? How can you use that to like grow, move forward, uh, and really just like better yourself? You know what I mean? Like it. I mean, as men of the household, I'm not speaking financially. I'm not speaking anything like that. But as a leader, it it
Yeah.
it starts with us. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's probably the biggest one there. Um, apart from that, it's just being honest. I think the honesty is, if you can be, because I think they kind of go hand in hand. Because if
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you can be honest with yourself, and sometimes that's the hardest person that to be honest with. Is when you look at the you look in the mirror, and you're just looking at yourself, and then not necessarily picking yourself apart and ridiculing yourself, but like really digging deep and just recognizing like, where can I be better? You know what I'm saying? Like, where can I work on the areas that are lacking? And so, I mean, that's a challenge. I week in, week out, bro. I look at myself and, okay, what did I say, or what didn't I say? I mean, silence is deafening as well. Where could I have spoken up? Where could I have, maybe interjected myself into a conversation with my wife, or where, how could I have responded a little bit differently? And it's a progress. You know what I'm saying? It's not an overnight thing. So.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing too. Like you're saying, being honest with yourself is huge. And I think a lot of people have, I guess, that are always seeking validation from other people, and looking for, doing the right thing to impress people or to get, likes or comments or like, edified by other people. When it's so important to do that for yourself, because when you're looking for other people, then you lose who you are. You lose a sense of what you're doing. So I think it's very, very important. I learned that over these last couple of years, like, you know, really being alone in the sense where you do that, you pick yourself apart, like ask yourself, why did I do this, or why does this make me feel that way? Is that natural? Like, am I okay with that? because the better you know yourself, especially as a man with a family, the better you can lead your family. You know, you understand, you can explain things that's going on, you know, the whys, the whats, the wheres, the whos, and all that stuff with purpose. It's not just acting at random or just out of emotion. You know, there's
Yep.
a lot of thought behind that and really like analyzing, you know, why you're doing what you're doing and for what reasons. And then again, if something turns out wrong or you know make a mistake, like going back, like you said, you know, owning up to, you know what, I thought I did it the right way because of this, that, and the third, and I was really thinking about it. It wasn't just you know acting out on a whim. You know, I was really putting thought on this and really wanting to have the best outcome.
Hmm.
You know, so it's those things are very, very huge. I think he said, you know, being honest with yourself, you know, and owning up to your mistakes is super important. And a part of those things, as far as having those characteristics requires being a man, I think it's also very important to have very strong morals that you hold near and dear to your heart. So for you, what are some of your most important morals that you live with on a day-to-day basis?
I think I think it's just like no matter what you're doing, and this is something my dad taught me growing up, is it doesn't matter if it's sports, it doesn't matter if it's a test, you know, in school, it doesn't matter if it's relationships, just whatever you're doing, I mean, do it the best, go all out. Do it to the absolute best of your abilities, you know. Um, and I think that really shows through, you know, character, personality, you know, perseverance, but um I think, yeah, it's just, you know, always, always being able to give it your all, you know, and I think us as dads, especially if we're doing that, you know, in our relationships, instead of just sitting down and having, you know, a half-assed conversation or just kind of doing the minimum, like being like real. I mean, being open, you know, being able to like break down those barriers and and just give it your all instead of kind of just skating by. And you know, for that was kind of hard for me because for you know a lot of my life, I feel like I was just kind of doing you know the minimum, you know, unfortunately, and it wasn't until I married my wife, you know, and then I kind of started, okay, you know, I really got to give it my all, you know, and um, I think my brain shifted towards, you know, more providing, giving it my all at work, providing, which, you know, obviously that's something you should be doing, but really more to like, you know, the emotional and like the connection side is like really being able to tap in, you know, I mean, from conversations with your wife to, you know, out with the boys getting, you know, food or just having that conversation is like really digging deeper than just, you know, how you doing, you know, and that could be a way to start off the conversation, but really just giving it your all with the relationships, and then just anything you do, you know.
Yeah, no, and I love how you chimed into all that with your wife in that conversation, and just really giving it your all, because I could definitely understand where you're coming from. You know, I know that, um, you know, my wife is my biggest supporter. You know, and I've known that, and hands down, I would not be where I am or doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for her. You know, and I was working at my other company at when I was working at for this cable vision. I was there, and I was just got to a point where I was just doing enough just to get my paycheck on a weekday, weekend, week out basis and stuff. You know, and then having her, you know, being married and say, okay, you know, it's not just about me anymore. I got somebody I got to provide for and take care of, and really make sure that she's okay. And then also just having her support in that belief system, because again, you know, you believe in yourself to a certain point, you know, because again, we were our own worst enemy too, as well, you know.
Exactly.
So having that extra support from her, you know, gave me that push to really kind of overcome those demons or those little, you know, mental insecurities that I had, because like, you know what, I got more, so I got somebody backing me up who really believes in what I'm doing, who supports me, who's gonna hold me down regardless. Even if I fall flat on my face, she'll be there to pick me back up and dust me off and then, you know, move on forward. So it's very important to have a wife or a partner in your life who does support you. You guys see eye to eye with. You guys can talk to about anything and everything and really be open and test you too. Because again, you know, you don't want to admit certain things to yourself because again, you don't want to, you know, downplay yourself. But having somebody on the outside like, hey, you know what, this is what it is, and really forcing you to answer those questions and face those facts, really to grow and overcome it, is super important. So definitely love that and having that strong person in your life too. You know.
Yeah, and I like how you said like partner, you know, because that's I mean that's what marriage is, and if you're not married, if you're just co-parenting, I mean that's a partnership as well. You know, you have the best interest for your family, for your kids, and hopefully for each other. You know,
Right.
regardless if you're married or if you're just in a relationship, baby mama, baby daddy, whatever, I mean, partnership is the biggest thing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to get through my day to days without my wife, like you said, man, gassing me up, you know, on the days that I don't feel like posting, on the days where I don't feel like, you know, I'm good enough to run a brand, because I'm still more or less a father, a fatherhood brand, when I'm still working on my faults as a father, or where I'm still trying
Hmm.
to work on myself as a father. And that's the biggest thing there that I think that you clicked on, was just being able to have a partner,
Right.
who's down to ride, you know what I'm saying? Who's, you know, they'll pick you up. If you fall flat on your face, they'll pick you up. If you need a correction check, and if you come out of left field, they're going to set you straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's, you know, people out there that'll just sit back and be quiet, and it takes a real one, you know, whether it's a husband or a wife, it takes a real one to be able to, um, in a, you know, loving way, but also, you know, a motivational way, being able to get in there and just set you straight for what you're doing. So
Yeah, definitely awesome to have somebody that challenged you to be better. And that's what's so important about it. Being in a relationship with anybody is really having the best interest in the other person and wanting each other to grow. It's not about what I can get out of this person, it's what I can provide as well to help them be better, and vice versa. So it's definitely a two-way street. So like you said, it's definitely hands down a partnership, to really be there. And like this whole thing with the show is also too just the impact of being a father, right? And having a role model in your life. And you briefly spoke about your dad too, teaching you, really to give it your all. But how's your relationship with your dad been growing up?
we had a good relationship, man. We had a real good relationship. My whole life, I was into sports from the time I was 3, playing t-ball, to the time I had my first, you know, football game at, you know, middle school, and even on through graduation. I mean, he was at every game, every practice, was always picking me up, dropping me back off. You know, when all the Madden games came out, we were always on the PlayStation 2 playing Madden. Um, we were we had a good relationship, man. I have a good role model as a father. But I think at the time that was his way of showing his love for me, right?
Hmm.
You know, I know that he had a pretty off and on relationship with his dad. My dad was one of 13,
Oh
bio
wow.
one of 13, all biological. So I think you could probably imagine, you know, and they didn't have money. They grew up here, poor in Denver, you know, and they didn't have money. And um, I think you could probably imagine how hard it would be. I mean, just to be able to form that type of connection with 13 different kids, and to be able to have that time to work on those connections independently. And so at the time growing up, you know, throughout my years, I think that was the way my dad can best show his love, which was being there. You know, he always had a job. As a matter of fact, he had 3 jobs at one point, making sure, you know, along with my mom, that we had a roof over our house, you know, making sure that we had food on the table. I never went without what I needed, but I didn't always get what I wanted. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I think that definitely played into who I am today as a man, and you know how I'm going to go about my life and my family as well. But he was always doing the most for us, providing. You know, and now looking back, I'm very big into love languages, and you know, read the book Future
Mm.
Over and whatnot. And I think growing up, that was my love language, and that was how he could show his love for me, was just by just being in the same room doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Just um, being there, supporting. He was always shouting at my games. You know, he was always cheering me on. Biggest fan. But now looking back, you know, I think we kind of lacked that communication part. I think we lacked that emotional connection. You know, I mean, I know he'll always love me. He said it all the time. He says it now. You know, but um, I think we missed that real bond where it was like, let's get real, you know, let's talk about the struggle, especially in my like developmental years, you know, when I was getting into trouble, you know, middle school, high school, all 4 years, man. And I think that's the one thing that we lacked on a little bit, was really not guidance necessarily, but just that emotional connection, you know. So now, and I think it's interesting, I've been thinking about it for a while. I think my love language has changed. You know, I think it changed from uh, spending time and like acts of service for him, which was making sure food was on the table and giving gifts and things like that. I mean, that's how he showed his love. But I think what I needed was like that words of affirmation. Like now looking back, like I needed to hear it, and I needed to hear it every day, and I needed those big hugs, and I needed, you know what I mean, a little bit more. And so that's one thing that we're working on now is, we go out to lunch, almost every Saturday. Him and my older brother, we go out to lunch, breakfast, whatever it is, and we really start to kind of break down those barriers a little bit more versus just, you know, kind of doing, I don't want to say doing the basic, but like at the time, like I said, I was just his form of how he could show me love.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't know any of the stuff that he was going through, the stresses of being a dad, the stresses of trying to provide, because I never felt it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Never felt like I didn't have, like I wasn't blessed. I always felt like I had the things in my life, clothes, for school, shoes, supplies, my parents had a car, things like that. So I think that means to me, like he did his job as a father, you know what I mean? But looking back, I'm taken from the lessons I learned from him and how he showed me love, and I'm coupling that with how I want to be able to show my love to my son, and how I want to be able to lead and guide him on a more connecting emotional
Hmm.
level. And so, man, we had a great relationship. We're working on it now. He's been through some things in his life. I think every person out there has been through some things, and I think it's hard to talk about it, kind of like you said, like it's just kind of hard to talk about it. And in today's society, I think we put ourselves in a box. Um, like we can't show emotion, we can't cry. It doesn't matter what happened, you can't cry.
Right.
And like, God forbid you ask another man, another dad for help or like direct,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And I think that's how he grew up, is just to carry all the weight on your shoulders. And so I'm trying to chip off some of them blocks there and trying to, kind of bridge a new relationship and, bridge a new gap. And it's going good. Like for the longest time, he would say like, love you, like, LOVE, love you, and I'm like, why isn't there like an I in there? Like where's the I in like I love you? And I think that's like pivotal, and I think that's a big thing that I'm working on with him too. And the first time is probably like a few months ago. One of his sisters actually passed away back in December,
Hmm.
and
My condolences.
one of 13, man, that was a tight family because there were so many of them. They had to rely on each other while both
Right.
work. And so, we were at the funeral, and after the funeral, I wanted to get real with him, and I was like, hey, I'm here for you if you need anything, if you want to go talk, grab lunch, whatever. And then I looked at him, and I was looking at him dead in his eyes, and I said, I love you. And then he goes, love you too, son. Gave me a hug, and he turned away, and I kind of tapped him on his shoulder and spun him back around, and I said, no, Dad, like I love you, and I think something just kind of clicked there, where just even, I mean, it means the same thing, obviously, but it's like just being deliberate and being intentional with the words that we're speaking, with how we're trying to connect. And so I'm starting to
Absolutely.
curveballs here, man, but we got a relationship that's it's good. And it's only evolving and getting better. So
No, I think it's deep that you have those heart to hearts and grow, because we need to hear that stuff too. It was a little bit different for me. I guess kind of like on the flip side, because like my dad didn't go to any of my events like that. I did play baseball. I was in choir class. I had performances and all those things. I spent about time and time again. My dad didn't go to any of those things.
mhm.
He wasn't there. Um, but then I noticed as I was getting older, the way that he was showing his own love for me. He's not that type of person, but and I joke about this too. And I'd be out late at night with my friends, hanging out till the wee hours in the morning, and coming back home, and my dad's sleeping on the couch, and he goes, "Oh, I didn't know you. I know you're waiting up for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I know you wasn't at ease. You didn't want to say it, but like I know,
Yeah,
and we I feel that me and my dad has had the most meaningful and powerful conversations than he had with my sister or my brother and stuff, because I would catch my dad in these moments, and we'd have these really intense conversations about what's going on in his life and how he's feeling, and really kind of getting emotional and stuff. So I got that part from him, and I love that. But also, I wish that he would shown up there and show me that support, because from my mom's side of the family, the way that I receive love is definitely, words of affirmation and physical touch. My mom and that side of the family, we aggressively show love. Like, we're grabbing and we're very physical, and in that sense, to let you know that I care about you, and that's how with my kids, it's aggressive love. Like, I'll grab them and hug them and kiss them, and all these things like that. Like, I'm letting them know all these ways, like, I care about you, like, I love you so much. And I tell my daughter that constantly, and my son constantly throughout the day, so that they know. And that's my way of showing them and trying to find out how they do that. And it's so wild because my daughter took on that side. She's very talkative person, very physical. Like, my mom loves her because they grab each other and they're hugging each other, you know what I mean? Like, all just like they do with me. And she sees that and she loves it. And my son, he's he's not like that at all. He's 3, we'll kiss him, he's like, stop, like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's not about that. But we'll have our moments, we'll play around and play fight, we'll just sit down and watch, and all these things. So it's interesting how you have to adapt your parenting, to your kids, even under the same roof. They're so different.
Hmm.
But it's that my wife brought that book to me too, when we were going through things, and our love language, and helping me understand better how to show her appreciation. Because with her, um, you know, hers is, again, is spending quality time, and being there for me. And to me, it's, again, it's physical touch. So, I need to physically feel that, and us
Hmm.
not being me being around you doesn't mean anything, because my family, we're all over the place, and we don't get that time to spend each other. And when we do, we very physical with it, and that's it. So just because I don't spend time with you doesn't mean I don't love you. And I didn't really understand that, from her. I had to, go through the book and read that and understand, like, okay, now I get it. Now I know why it's so important for me to, be here or do certain things with her and all those other things, because it's how she understands that I love her. So, you definitely have to grow and constantly, developing and growing. So it's so important to understand people's love languages. So that's a really good book that people need to read in any type of relationship, to understand people, and then really get that point out there. And I know you said that too, like with your dad, like he taught you how to, give it 100% and give it your all and everything. But what do you feel has been something else that you feel you really learned from your dad that really stuck out for you?
I think really just to like put your family first. I mean, like I said, he always had, 2, 3 jobs, making sure we were always provided for. I don't ever remember one time, whether it was before breakfast or before dinner or, parties for my birthdays, that I don't remember one time where he did not pray first and get a plate last. Everyone else in the
Mm,
family plate, everyone else ate
wow.
first. Even if there was no food left, I mean, my dad would get a plate and eat what's left. And so that's a big thing. Is I mean, I watched him put himself, or put the family first before even himself. And I think that that's one thing that that I really learned from. But I think I also kind of watched it do. I don't want to say damage by any means, but I think that we can do that to an extent. I think that um, I mean, we gotta like I said, man, like we're the leaders. Like we control the tempo, the emotions. I think that we have a big hand, a heavy hand in that. And so I think that we got to really take care of ourselves, like going back to checking yourself, going back to um, really evaluating where you can, better yourselves before, bettering other people, and before, being able to provide for other people. Even then, I think it starts with us, and really, we really got to be able um, to make sure that we're in a good spot, mentally.
Mm-hmm.
We got to make sure that we're able to be the best that we can be, and I think that that's how we can then be able to show that type of love. That's how we can then be able to show up and show out for our family as well. And so, but that was a big thing, was putting your family first. I try to do that every day, for my wife, my kid. There's definitely some days I could do better. There's always days I could do better, but I think that's where I'm trying to really be like conscious about it and really, do some like deep, looking into myself and looking into my life and seeing where I can do better. So that way I can help them. So that way I can lead by example and be just a better role model for my kid, for my son. So,
Yeah, no, it's so important to make sure that you're okay, because if you're not 100%, how can you provide 100% for other people?
right.
And I've learned that too the hard way myself, is that there's times that you just kind of go and go and go and go, and you burn yourself completely out, and now you're just sidelined. You're just not right physically, emotionally, mentally. You're just completely depleted, uh, and everybody's kind of looking at like, now what do we do now? So it's so important that you do take time for yourself and kind of figure out what you need to do to kind of keep yourself sane and in check, because like you say, we got to be the provider. We got to lead strong, and we can't, do that half-assed. So it's
Right.
so important to make sure that we're ready and prepared to handle any task, and take a break when we need to, and understand when we're at that point. We're like, you know what, I just need to take 5.
Yeah.
I need to get myself right so that I can, be 100% tomorrow, and
Mhm.
not completely burn yourself at both ends. So, and then you say your son. You only have your son. That's it. You only have one kid.
Yeah, yeah, I got one. He's since he's 17 months. His name's Elijah, man, and he's such a blessing, bro. He's keeping us on our toes. He's running everywhere, full speed,
Yeah.
babbling, babbling like none other. But he's the joy, man. He's the highlight of my day, man. When I come home from a long day of work, when I wake up and before I get ready to head into the office, I mean, I enjoy every moment that I get with him. And it's not a lot. I mean, I work, full time Monday through Friday. When I come home, I got about an hour and a half before he's off to bed. We do dinner,
Hmm.
quick bath, off to bed. But those are the areas, those are the times that like I feel like I need to be just more intentional, and I try to be just more aware and just more hands on and just deliberate with our time together, instead of just being there, which is, some ways that, dads show their love and whatnot, but really trying to create that emotional bond. Those are the times I try hardest. So,
No, definitely, and it's wonderful. I guess I got a son too. He's about to be 3 in April. And it's definitely different from than my daughter growing up, because I don't know if it's just a boy thing, whatever, but yeah, he's always running around and so destructive and tossing things and just so. But it's you gotta love it, and you're there and really making the most of it. There's like just a few minutes ago, I'm laying down. I know how to get his attention. I was laying down on the ground because he likes to roll and jump on top of me, and I grunt at him, and he looks at me he's like, "Daddy," and he just comes running and try. You know what I mean? It's just you know such an important thing. So it's he's one of the main reasons why I started this whole podcast and started doing these things, because now I'm raising a man of my own, and it was so different because I didn't have that for me growing up, that, and all the places that I struggled, because I didn't feel like I had that strong male role model. So it's so important to be there and trying to guide him and trying to teach him, all the do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs, and how to be a man and how to be a good person and loving. I even took time to take it for myself. Like, what are some things that I want to teach him? I want to teach him to be, confident, to love himself, to love others, to be a caring person, to be kind. And so those are the things that I want to try to instill in him and teach him as he grows. For you, what do you think are some of the most important things you want to teach your son as he grows up and gets older?
I just want to teach him. It's starts out kind of vague, but just to be a good man, just to be a good person. I mean, to accept everyone for who they are.
Hmm.
I mean, no one's the same. You and I are different. You and your dad are different. Me and my dad are different. But just to accept everyone as they come and just being able to like recognize that, be okay with it, and just being able to, I think, is just being able to accept everyone for who they are. That's one thing I want to be able to instill in him, and just to do the right thing. I think that doing the right thing when like no one's looking. I think that
Hmm. Hmm.
for me and for a lot of us, we just feel like we always have to be on point, and we always have to be on cue, and we just kind of have to portray this like perfect, we're doing the right thing, we're always making the right decisions, and like that's not the case, man. Like we're gonna mess up a million times to tomorrow, bro, and
Right.
I want to teach him is like no one's perfect. Like, you know, no one's perfect. Don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be the best version of you every day. You know, I think that
Absolutely.
there's 365 days in a year. It's cliche, but if you get 1% better each day, that's 365% that you're growing. You know, and so for me, that's really a big thing that I want to leave, and I really want to guide him with is just to do the best you can every day, be the best person that you can be. You know, everyone comes from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and just to be able to accept people as they are, um, and just spread love. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a big thing that we're all missing now, and we
Hmm.
live in such a selfish world, and I hate to believe that. But we're lacking a lot of love. You know, we're lacking a lot of community. We're lacking a lot of you know, appreciation for each other. And so that's the big thing that I want to be able to leave, you know, with him morals wise is, you know, do the right thing when the lights are off, you know,
Yeah.
when cameras aren't on and when no one's looking. I think that that's like when our personality comes out. That's when our true character traits come out. And that's the biggest thing that I want to leave them with is just being able to really, you know, be you, unapologetically, you know, be you, but like be the best version of you every day, you know, and then that's going to spill out to, you know, his future spouse, his future partner, his friendships, hopefully our friendship, you know, our relationship, my son and I, but it's just going to make such a bigger impact. Is just being you and being the best you that you can be and like not trying to be perfect. You know, I think there's just such a heavy, like I said, there's just such a heavy expectation for like men specifically to like be perfect and to not seem like we're lacking or like we have any faults. And that's just, I think that's one of the biggest things that's just killing us, man. It's just,
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, if you're going through those weaknesses or you're having those struggles, it's always the same thing. Better man up. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, which is, yeah, and that's you know that's another reason again like why I also have another show that I'm starting recently. You know, it's called Face Fears and Build Bonds. But it's about that really just to get us to be able to talk about our feelings, talk about emotions, be out there and just be vulnerable because that just leads to and I think he said it best. I don't know if you know Jason Wilson. Um, you know, he wrote the book Cry Like a Man, and so I read that book and it really definitely changed a lot and helped me understand so much more of what it is to be a man. And part of that is again is to express yourself because like you said in the book, when you keep all those feelings inside, you have yourself in an emotional incarceration. And that's just so toxic. You start to lash out and do things, you know, that you really don't want to be doing. Was just, you know, your way of lashing out or getting these emotions out because you can't talk about your feelings. You know, you tell your wife you love her, and then you're being soft or you're simping. You know, you start to cry, and again you're soft or you're not a real man. You know, so it's all these things that they trained to put you down and beat yourself up when it's not the case because we all go through it. As I started growing older and seeing that stuff, like it's everybody. Everybody's going through these things and these struggles and stuff, but we're so afraid to talk about it and be vocal about it because everybody's gonna look down upon us, you
Right.
know, and we don't want to do that. Like I had a tough time, you know, struggling to communicate things to my wife. For the simple fact is because, you know, if I wasn't able to provide or I'm able to do things and stuff, you know, I start to feel like I'm less of a man, you know, and I tell her all the time, like, I don't want you to look down on me or me to be look less in your eyes
Mm-hmm.
because I'm crying or because I'm upset or because I'm angry or because of any of these emotions that make me look weak because that's what I was trained to believe when I was growing up. So
Right.
it caused a lot of tension in our relationship to a certain point because I was just so unable to express myself or come to her about certain things or when I was vulnerable or when I was weak because I didn't want her to look down on me.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to break as we talked too. Like, you know, she says, you know, I'm married, I'm with you, we're a team. You know, you're gonna have your bad days, and I understand that I'm gonna be here for you and pick you up and do all those things for you. But you got to communicate with me. You got to
Mm-hmm.
be open with me. You got to let me know what's going on because it's also damaging to me because part of that, which is again like going back to the book and you know our love language is that when I start going through a lot of things or I start feeling down, I shut down. I just close everything out and I just, you know, kind of back into a corner. I don't talk. I don't want to be bothered. I just, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to solitary confinement. And that doesn't work for her because, again, it's about spending time. It's about being there. And then it's not that I don't care about you, it's sending the wrong signal It's just that I don't want people to see me right now because I'm vulnerable and I'm weak, and I don't want to expose that.
Hmm.
So it's so important to talk about that and spread our emotions and talk freely, and like you said too, with my kids and things that I teach them is really to spread love, because that's how we're going to make this world a better place. It is cliche as they say, but it's the absolute truth. It so baffles me so much when you kind of do something simple to somebody and they're just so taken off guard. Like, what? Like, what do you want? What are you trying to get at? Nothing, man. I just want to make sure you're good. Like, this
Yeah.
whole, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Nothing, no intent. I just want to do something nice for you. And it's
Right.
crazy how when people see that, they're so like defensive because it's not normal anymore, and it's crazy. You know?
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's just the smallest thing, the most simple thing. Even just checking up on someone, like I check up on some of my boys, and they're like, I mean, this was back before I started this whole thing, but I'd be checking up on some of my boys, and they're like, "Yo, like, you all right, bro?" Or like, like asking me if I'm okay, and I'm like, I'm just trying to check in with you, man.
Yeah, yeah,
I saw your post on IG, bro. It looked like you're having a hard day, fam. Like I'm here for you. You know what I mean? Like I want to let you know that I'm here for you, and I hope I can reach out to you in the same way, and so I think it's crazy how you mentioned that as like some of like the smallest things, even a text or, giving someone a phone call, they're like, oh, like something must be wrong. You know what I mean? And
right.
that's not what it is. It's simply just letting someone know that you appreciate them, you're glad they're part of your life, or you just want to check up on them and make sure they all right.
Yeah, no, it's okay because I with my closest friends, and as again, you when you're young, you got no responsibility. You guys can hang out and chill 24/7, do all these things. You get older, you get different responsibilities and things, and you drift away in a sense, because you're pulled in so many directions. But it's so important too. Like, every once in a while, I reach out to everybody, like, "Hey, guys, I just want you to know I love you guys, man. Yeah, nothing wrong. Just I love you guys. Hope everything's good.
Yeah.
And that's they just let know that it's real and that I'm here for you. Because I know countless times, when I'm needing them in my darkest hours, and I call them up like, "Yo, listen, I'm going through something right now, and hey, I'm coming. I'm coming to see you. I'm gonna come check you. Let's go hang out. Let's do something," because
Yeah.
we understand what it is to be in that position and what it is to feel left out and being alone, and we're family. We're there for each other, and we got to make sure that we're okay. And if you generally calling out for help, I got to be there hands down, because
Right.
I know you're gonna expect the same in return. So
Yeah.
and getting on like your brand and stuff like that, because I know you were talking about how you started this whole, so how did the whole Conscious Father Society come to be, and how did that start up?
Man, it started back. I watched a lot of dad role models in my life, from my dad to his dad, uncles, cousins, things of that sort. A lot of these father figures out there just really struggle, man, with what seemed like no one to turn to. It just seemed like I watched them keep everything in. And at the time growing up, I was younger, even to like high school and stuff. Just I didn't fully understand what they were going through, because A, they didn't talk about it. B, like I hadn't been in that position yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched so many dads just struggle, in silence, and there wasn't enough conversation around it, and you as well as some of the other uh, you know Instagrams that I follow, and things of that sort, we're like the only ones talking about it. I feel like we're the only ones really trying to get the conversation out there, uh, and not just pass it off like, I'm all right, or like I'm good. So
Mm-hmm.
I watched a lot of these, men that meant a lot to me struggle with, communicating. I watched them struggle with just, you know, existing straight up. I mean, just going through their day to day didn't matter. I just watched them struggle, and really not have anyone to turn to. And then, apart from that, once I became a father, so back up a little bit, my wife and I, a few years back, we tried to, have a kid, and we couldn't conceive for, just little, probably around 2 years, we tried to have a kid, and it just didn't seem like it was in the works for us, and we went through our, 8 months, kind of like, seasonal depression, and it just really affected our relationship. It affected me, because growing up, I mean, we've been together since we were 16, man. So growing up, like we envisioned our life together. We envision, raising this family, and raising these kids together. And once it was, what felt like wasn't going to be in our playing cards, I went through just a dark place, and I was in a rough spot, and then lo and behold, we get pregnant, and I made it that mission. I was thinking about all the other role models in my life, and I just made it a mission to be the best dad I can be, but to scratch the surface deeper, it was really just to be conscious, just to, like, when you're there, like, that's the only thing that's there. It doesn't matter if you had a hard day at work or a hard week or whatever. It literally doesn't matter, because it's going to be different for every dad. It's going to be different for every situation, right? But like, when you're there, when you're with your wife, when you're with your spouse, partner, those times that you're with your kids, just to be like, all your attention is on them, like, and just to be intentional and deliberate with the time that you're going to be spending with them. And so that was, really one of the biggest things, and one of the biggest reasons I started it was, just because I felt like just wasn't any conversation out there around it. Like, I'm not a parent coach. I'm not a dad coach. I'm, man, I go through my struggles every day,
Yeah, yeah,
but I wanted to create this space, to be able to, like, allow dads to be able to, like, to create the conversations that aren't being had, instead of going throughout your day and just, feeling like you got to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, and, it's me by myself, and I'll stand on that. Like, get together with the guys, reach out to your other dad friends, have the conversations that you maybe didn't have with your dad, like, it's never too late to start making those conscious decisions. And that's why I named the Conscious Father Society, is like, it's never too late to start working on areas that maybe you fell short 10 years ago as a dad. Maybe you messed up last week. You can always start now. Every day is a new day. You can always start making those steps to be the best dad you can be. And so with the brand, specifically with the apparel side, I needed something to keep me on track, right? So,
mhm.
like, you see all these hoodies out there for moms, and, Mama Bear,
Yeah,
best
yeah,
world, this and that. Like, I wanted to scratch the surface a little deeper. And, whenever I wear a hoodie or a t-shirt, people are always asking, like, what is that? And what does it mean? This, that. And then I'm like, boom, like, that's my opportunity to talk about, like, how much I take pride in being a dad, and how I try to be the best dad I can be, and it's really just to start those conversations, around, that are hopefully just going to be able to uplift, might be in a rough time or might be going through it, or just, chop it up about how much you guys love being dads, but I feel like there wasn't enough support out there,
hmm,
and certainly not enough conversation around, like, the hard parts, and the parts that no
yeah,
one
yeah.
talks about, and being vulnerable, and, like, that we're not perfect, you know what I mean? And so that was really the apparel side, was just to be able to, give face to us dads that are doing our best every day, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you, and I know what you mean too, as far as at the point of worrying about the kids and not being able to conceive. Because I know for myself, like, I know I wanted to be a dad when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
My niece was born, and I held her for the first time, and I know I struggled a lot with um, really understanding what, like, that unconditional love was. And I remember holding her for the first time and looking at her, just so innocent, so new, not knowing anything. And I was just like, this is what unconditional love is. You know what I mean? Like, this is where it's at. I want this so bad for me. Um, and I was growing older and going through my life, and things happen, and it wasn't that I wasn't really trying to have any kids, but I'm like, man, like, any mistakes didn't happen. Like, it just was one up. Some people, again, they have sex one time and boom, they're pregnant. And other people, they go so long struggling trying to, and nothing happens. And I think I'm a very firm believer in everything happens for a reason.
Hmm.
And I know that, I'm glad that everything went the way that it did, because again, with my wife, I feel like I have the perfect partner who I'm meant supposed to be with, who I was meant to have kids with, because we're so eye to eye on certain things. And I think, again, in your case, it just had to go through, certain things to be able to develop this, and really now creating a whole new voice for so many other people, and really being that motivation and really understanding that pain,
Yeah.
of what people go through. Because my wife says this all the time too, and I know they talk about it, is a lot of people, especially in our families and stuff like that in the society, you're married and they start, when are you gonna have kids? Like, why don't you have any kids yet? And it's like that. And they don't understand what's going on behind closed doors. And then you don't want to have to explain to them either, because that's also just something that you got to kind of deal with, and it's hurtful, because it's not like you don't want to, right? You're
Yeah.
not trying, you know what I mean? Like, it's not happening, and then feeling that unnecessary pressure from society and the world around you that it needs to happen.
Mhm.
So it's even more and more kind of beating up on you. So it's huge that, again, that was a big inspiration you starting in society, because I think it's wonderful what you're doing. That's why I wanted to reach out to you too, and talk to you, because I know that it's so hard for really people to let themselves be vulnerable,
Mhm.
because again, we know, as we see on the internet and all the world, so the negativity sells, and there's going to be trolls out there who want to pick and stab at you, and try to bring you down. And the sad part is that you're going through the same shit too, bro. So I don't know why you're sitting here trying to like beat up on other people to try to
Right.
make yourself feel better. Just have the real conversation. Hey, you know what? I understand. Like, I'm struggling too. I'm going through these problems. I'm going through these issues. And this is part of, like, with my other shows, really to help people build a bond together. Let's have these conversations. Let's sit down and talk. Let's get out there, because sometimes, it's just getting that off your chest and just getting it out there and saying it, not holding out it inside. That'll make you feel so much better.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody to have the answer for me, or to tell me, or wave that magic wand to fix all my problems. I just need to decompress and vent and let it out, because it's too much weight that I'm carrying, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna snap.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's it, is just being able to create that, break down those barriers, instead of kind of feeling like you can't talk about it or whatnot. It's just being able to break down those barriers to allow us to be real with each other, to allow us to share like our wins. Even sometimes I feel like as a dad, you can't share like your wins, because you may be, maybe there's other dads out there that like hasn't gotten that W yet, or maybe they are working on other areas of their life where they feel like they're behind you, and I feel like all that is really just what's adding on to that weight on the camel's back, and like it's just one more straw and it's gonna break, so like just being able to have that outlet, just being able to have, good friends that you can count on, and specifically like other dads that have like gone through what you're gone through, or they're going through it currently. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. So
No, definitely, and I love what you're doing, man. I wish you nothing but the success and everything that comes to it, and just continue to grow, because it's so important that we need to have that. And I think you touched on another key point there too, like people who may not have that win yet, or may not be there, is that another tough thing. I think that we need to break is, and really understand, is that we're on nobody else's timeline but our own.
hmm
You know what I mean? And we really need to understand that and be okay with that. Just because this dad may have it figured out, a couple years before you, and you feel like you can't compare yourself to anybody else. You know what I mean? You are your own person. You have your life is gonna play out a certain way just for you. Your kids are different, And I say this all the time. Just if your parents, right, wrote a playbook on how they raised you, play by play, for every which way scenario, and handed it to you, and you try to apply that to your kid, you're not gonna get the same outcome.
not at all.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna get at all.
Yeah.
And people need to really understand that and realize that, it's a constant change. And just like as me growing up, and I started to realize this, is that, as our parents were raising us, they're learning how to do it. You know what I
Fact.
mean? Like, it's not engraved in their DNA to know how to be a parent, or know how to, like, speak to us or treat us and all these different things. It's a whole different person. And then on top of that, the world around us is constantly changing. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like, it's so wild that my daughter now, she's like, "Oh, hey, Dad, I want to have a play date. Can you like email his mom or text them? Let them know, and then stuff that we want to hang." And I'm like, "What?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, or like, "Oh, so we can go on, we can do a TikTok together and do this," and it's just like, how do I manage this? And I can't ask my parents, because they have no idea what social media is. You know
Right.
what I mean, or any of those things, to try to coach and plan. And it's important that all of us, that we do get together and have these conversations, and speak things out. Because again, you may have a piece of the puzzle, or vice versa, or try to help me figure out things that we can try and develop, and really help us guide and do our best in raising the next generation of kids.
Yep.
Because again, we're gonna have to leave it up to them, and we want to leave it to them in a better place, in a good place, and leave them with all the tools necessary to try to be as successful as they possibly can
Mhm.
when the new generation comes and the times change again. you know. So it's so important to teach them how to be adaptable and changing all those things. So again, man, congratulations on what you're doing. I love it. I definitely, think that I would love to have you on my other show too. You know what I mean? When we sit down and talk, and we have a group of guys talking together about different things, because it's so important to get. Like I say this all the time. Like we're not gonna go through every single situation in life. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see every scenario, but different people go through different things that we can kind of put the puzzle together and really kind of brainstorm and get collective ideas on what we can do to be better for all of ourselves. So definitely want to keep in touch with you to go on and have these other conversations and stuff like that. I think it'd be an amazing asset for that show. So as we're winding down here for you, I got two last questions for you, man. So my first question is that for you, what has been, you think, the best advice that you've received growing up? Right?
I think the best advice that I received uh, probably came to me at around 16. So, like I said, my wife and I met around 16, and she had these two, older individuals that essentially they were like her third set of grandparents, Um, and their name was Al and Vi. Vi was the grandma, and they've been together. I want to say it was like 60. They got married when they were 19, and I think she was like 100 when she passed away. I think the husband
Mm,
passed away maybe 6 months after that, but the whole time. And I'd met him, probably over the course of a couple of years, had been and visited with them, meals, dinners, things of that sort. But right before she passed, I want to say it was probably like a couple of weeks before she passed, um, she looks at me and my wife and she goes, communication, communication, communication. And I think that was probably the best advice that I've gotten yet. I think that it could just be so applicable to so many aspects of life. I mean, whether you're having like if you're having a bad day, if you need some time, if you need time to be alone, I mean, like you said, sometimes when you're just kind of feeling off, like you tend to shut down. You tend to just I need to be alone. I need to just kind of do my own thing. I'm very much the same way, and that's something that like my wife and I have had to like actively put time in, and me specifically, because she can talk, she can go on forever and always about anything, and I love that about her. But for me, like I don't, and that was a big thing for me with like the brand was like I had to really learn how to like talk about my emotions, like even the good ones, the good
hmm
ones,
hmm
bad the hard days. I mean, I really had to like evaluate what I'm feeling and then figure out the best way to like get that point across or to let that person know. But I think whether it's like with our kids, with our wife, spouse, with the homies, like whatever it is, I think that just being able to communicate what you need, not just how you're feeling, but even like what you need, like if you need that physical touch, like you're saying, or if you need conversation, if like, words of affirmation is your love language, like being able to communicate your needs. Cause like if we don't do that, how is anyone going to know like how to help us?
Right,
Like
right.
if we can't learn to communicate, like my kid's 16 months old now, and like he's talking, learning words, starting to try to actually talk, and like if I can't communicate with him, as crazy as it seems at like 16, 17, months old, if I can't communicate with him, and if I can't validate his attempts to communicate or validate his emotions or his feelings either, it's like how am I going to expect to like be able to communicate with him in like 3 years or in 10 years or in 20 years when he may be going through, you know, what we're going through, And so I think that, biggest advice and like I'll take it to the grave, that I received best advice was just communicate, 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 and um, it doesn't have to be like just being able to just speak what you need, you know. I think in what you're feeling, especially in today's world where like we're not supposed to feel those things or we're not supposed to let anyone know that we're feeling sad or like depressed, or that we're feeling like it could be anything, bro, suicidal, depressed, sad, bummy, like whatever it is, just being able to communicate that. Because then like there's a group of people out there, and like those people out there, they're going to be able to help you, you know, and like you can help someone else. And so I
Mhm.
think biggest piece was just being able to communicate, and to be able to like work on it, because it's hard at first. Like my communication at first was not great. Like at first it was like non-existent, and then me working on it was like not great, you know. And I'm still working on it now, but like I said, it's I work on myself daily. Like I try to check myself daily, week in, week out. Where can I be better? Where can I be more efficient? And what can I do to be a better husband and a better dad? You know, and I think that once we start really doing better and digging deeper versus just scratching the surface, like that's really where we're going to see that progress, and it's going to change your life.
No, absolutely. I think that's one thing that while my wife, I know she went and got the book of the love languages and all these things, and she's constantly working on us being better communicators with one of each other.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing, me and my wife, is we're total opposites. You know, a lot of things that we see things is that I guess like they say that opposites attract, but we're like very different people, you
Yeah.
know, and we see things completely different. And that's one of the big great things that I love about us is because having those two extremes, you know, for our kids, I feel like it's extremely beneficial, you know, and they kind of get the best of both worlds and kind of see the middle ground and stuff. But it also, again, causes a lot of stress points in our relationship because, again, you know, the difficulty of trying to communicate and trying to get each other to understand, and that's something too that I constantly got to work on and get better at because I know there's a lot of things that I and I still I've gotten better at it and I need to keep working on it as far as things that bother me, certain things, and being able to let her know. Because
Yeah.
again, I'm worried about, oh, I don't want to hurt her feelings, or I don't want to make things look bad, or I don't want me look bad, or I don't want this, or I don't want, you know what I mean? And you kind of start to let all those things eat at you. And one of these quotes that I've seen that really is helping me do better at that is he says, you either say something and fuck shit up, or say nothing and fuck yourself up. You know what I mean? And it's just, you know, I can't do that to myself anymore, you know, because again, it's just, I've been there, you know, suicidal thoughts and different attempts here and there, and really feeling like completely out because I didn't say anything,
Yeah.
because I kept things locked up inside and I let it just eat at me and destroy me. So it's very key and wonderful advice that she gave you about communication because, again, it applies to any and all areas of life. Because I know too, with one of my friends, well, a bunch of my friends too, but you know, in particular, my boy Mish, I've known him since, you know, the first grade, and he's, you know, one of the few people that I am completely open with and just say whatever and anything it is. Because we got to the point, I know there's no judgment, and you know, like he says, you know, with love, set me straight if I'm in the wrong or whatever. But at least I'm able to let that out and get that out in the open, and at least feel better and know that it's okay and not going to tarnish our relationship in any which way form. You know, so it's very important that we communicate and continue to work on those, and then even get to the point where we can do that with the people that we love the most. You know, because again, I know we always have that fear of hurting somebody, or, you know, putting them down or hurting their feelings. But if you don't get it out, it's just toxic for both of you. So wonderful advice that she gave you. Um, and also now, this with everything that you're going through and all your different experiences and stuff like that, I guess, you know, looking down at your son or the next generation, stuff like that, what is one piece of advice you would like to offer them?
My one piece of advice is just to always be you, and be you unapologetically. It's just like everyone's different. We all got different point of views, different backgrounds, different beliefs. You know, I love sports. My son may not. He may love dancing. He may love art. He may love music.
Right.
I don't care. Whatever it is. Like I'm gonna love it too. Like I'm gonna be on that. Um, but so like always just be you no matter what. You know, I feel like growing up I had to keep this like persona,
Mm.
like
Mm-hmm.
always being the athlete, always being the tough guy, you know. And I think part of that was probably passed through like, you know, not really seeing my dad connect super crazy on like the emotional side. But like, you know, you just got to keep that wall up, keep those barriers up, and like don't let them down, you know. And so like just to be you all the time unapologetically. And then apart from that, like don't let your past define like who you are now, you know.
Mm.
Like I heard a quote a while ago, and it was like, if you knew me 10 years ago, you don't know me now, You know what I mean? Like if you knew who I was 10 years ago, and it can kind of come into time, right? You know, but for me 10 years ago, I was a boy, man. Like I wasn't living right like I'm trying to now. I wasn't making those steps daily toward self development and progression like I am now. But like don't let your past experiences and don't let your past mistakes like define who you are now. I mean, there's a chance, and you, not a chance. Every single day, you have a chance to do better. You know, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just 1% every day, that's 1% better than yesterday. You know, so um, I made so many mistakes, bro. I did messed up so many times. Um, few times I shouldn't be here. Man, it's crazy. You know, I'm sure you can relate on maybe some of that, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt like for the longest time I was letting the past choices that I made dictate and like define who I am. You know,
Right.
even up to like a couple of years ago, and like that's just not the case. At any point, any given time, you can work on being a better person. You can work, like, if you weren't maybe the best dad, if you haven't been there physically, you can work on being there physically. If you're not the best at getting emotional and connecting, or communicating, like, you can work on that. Like, these are things that can be worked on. So, you know don't let your past define your future. Definitely don't let it define like who you are now, because every day, like, we get a new choice. And so, like, the choice is like, it's up to us. It's up to you ultimately. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, for the younger generation, it definitely is like, don't let your past dictate like who you're going to be in the future. You know, speaking from like rough experiences or whatever. Um, that's my biggest thing I would leave with.
Yeah, no, and what everything you said there, it actually brought two quotes to mind. One of them that I think also was very important, that kind of also helped me grow as well, was every day you wake up, you have two choices: evolve or repeat. What did you decide to choose today? So that goes how you're saying, we always have a chance to develop. Tomorrow's always a new day. We can definitely try to work on being better. But also another one that really stood out to me was says that um, every demon has a future and every saint has a past.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
hey,
So
like that.
So, that definitely stood out to what they're saying too. A lot of people, and we've seen that too time and time again. Like one person, off the top of my head, like Danny Trejo, you know what I mean? He grew up and he was in a lot of gangs and all those things, and was in jail here and that. And he completely turned his life around, successful movie actor, and he purposely plays all the villains in the movies because he wants to show kids that the bad guy doesn't, it doesn't pay to be bad,
Right,
so
right.
so important how he changed his life around. Robert Downey Jr., you know what I mean? We look at his, and what he did is growing up, doing all the drugs and everything, being out of jail, and now being like the highest paid actor,
Facts.
out there. So we have to understand that everybody has the ability to do better. It's just a choice.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to. So,
Yeah.
again, Andrew, man, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. It was an amazing conversation, man. I love having you here. Definitely want to talk to you about, the other show and really getting out there and talking about our feelings. I think it's such an important thing that we do that. So, again, nothing but success to you, man. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. And thank you so much again for being here for me.
Yeah, facts, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on the show. Hit me up on that other podcast there, and I'd love to be a part of it. I love everything you got going on. The conversations you're having with these guys are just inspirational, man. I love that you're providing that space for us to, again, talk about what's not being talked about. So appreciate you.
I know, well, thank you so much. And I know I haven't gone out, but I gotta this week. I'm gonna send you out a Fab hoodie, so I expect that in the mail for you. All right,
Facts, facts. I'll send you one as well. We'll link up.
all right, man. Definitely, man. Be easy. Well, stay blessed, man. Appreciate you.
All right, brother. Enjoy your night.
You too.
And as I always say, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, your big brother loves you. Stay blessed, everybody.